It's an absolutely gorgeous evening here in downtown St. Louis. And a look at the Redbird Club inside the stadium. We're at Busch Stadium tonight, and this evening it's game number 2 between the St. Louis Cardinals playing host to the Houston Astros. And welcome to Cardinals Baseball. That's Rick Horton. I'm Dan McLaughlin. Delighted to have you with us as the Cardinals look to make it 3 wins in a row overall, 2 straight against Houston. We talk about it so much. These are teams that they should beat. That's on paper. Doing is another thing.
A good start to the series here yesterday, and it was all about pitching, Dan. Kyle Loesch got the start, picked up win number 15. He really was not hit around at all in this game, gave up just 4 hits, and was on top of his game all night long. Out of the bullpen, it was Jason Mott, a 1-2-3 ninth. A bit of a sinker and a cutter that we saw in the ninth. He's been a very, very good closer for St. Louis and emerging as one of the league's best.
Statistically, he is in that conversation as one of the league's best. You've got Kimbrel, Mott, Hanrahan, Chapman, and Papelbon.
His development has been very, very good. Of course, the Cardinals have been good 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, but you're only as good as your closer.
Yesterday, we looked at the Cy Young Award. Tonight, we take a look at the potential MVPs. Ryan Braun, Miguel Cabrera. We'll break it down when we come back. You're watching Cardinals Baseball on Fox Sports Midwest. Fox Sports Midwest, big crowd finally into Busch Stadium. The Astros and Cardinals coming up in game number 2. Who might be the MVP in the National and American Leagues? Here's Rick Horton's picks.
For the first 4 months of the season, Ryan Braun's numbers were outstanding, but largely ignored as the Brewers struggled. But now, as the reigning MVP has helped his Brewers climb back over 500 and into the playoff picture, his excellence has taken center stage, and his season can no longer be overlooked. Braun leads the league in home runs. RBIs, and slugging. And with a winning team, he should be the leading candidate for the NL MVP. Miguel Cabrera has finished in the top 5 in MVP voting 5 times in his career, but he's never won. This year, though, he leads the league in RBIs, average, and slugging percentage. Cabrera has to continue his September surge to beat out the Angels' Mike Trout and the Rangers' Josh Hamilton. But Cabrera's realistic shot at baseball's first Triple Crown since 1967 could put him over the top.
Speaking of Triple Crowns, he did it back in 1922 and 25. The Roger Hornsby. Now, thinking of the last 5 Triple Crown winners, you have Ted Williams, did it a couple of times, Mickey Mantle in 56, Frank Robinson in 66, the last to do it, Carl Yastrzemski, the Boston Red Sox, back in 1967. We're back with more on Fox Sports Midwest in just a moment. Their annual team picture. It's time for another edition of Up for Grabs on Fox Sports Midwest.
Nice play there, Don. Got a little stinger, though.
Got another baseball. He caught that. That's one of the guys that threw out one of the ceremonial first pitches today.
The play. Falling down, held on to it. Off the top of the Orioles' dugout. Sort of.
What do you mean it's time for no food, huh? I'm hungry.
Just embarrassing, that's all.
Nice catch out there in the seat.
Talk about nice grabs. Right in his hat. Yep. Kids are happy.
That's right, creativity.
Up the left field side and a nice grab down there.
We get you set for baseball. It's game number 2. The Houston Astros and the St. Louis Cardinals. Lance Lynn stretching, getting loose. He's set to go. And he's looking for win number 16. Baseball comes your way next. Busch Beer and easy drinking Busch Light. By your Mid-America Chevy dealers, the #1 selling brand in St. Louis. Find us at stlchevy.com. By Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers, #1 for quality tires and expert auto service. And by Steak and Shake, just no equal. That gentleman is a part of the Weston Pop-Up Challenge. You hear that talked about time and again throughout the season. That was about a half hour ago. And the gentlemen in the truck that put that together say that was his best effort.
Probably humbled a bit, that gentleman, but glad to be doing it. All smiles. Here's a look at the Astros batting order.
Altuve, a late insertion into the lineup. Tyler Green will sit. Then it's Moore and Wallace. Maxwell, Lowry, Laird, SNYDER, Paradis, and Harrell. And here's a look at your Enterprise Bank and Trust starter, Lance Lynn.
If Lance Lynn can be nearly as good as he was in his outing against the Dodgers, the Cardinals would be happy. Lance Lynn really showed up for that game 1 of that 4-game series against the Dodgers. It was a key moment, and he really did regain his form that he had in the first half of the season. It was fun to watch him pitch and compete and have command of the strike zone again.
And the Cardinals get a little help this afternoon thanks to Washington. They defeat the Dodgers. First game of a doubleheader for them in our nation's capital. The final was 3-1 in favor of the Nationals. Here's Jose Altuve. He'll lead it off, batting .291. 5 home runs, 34 driven in. And the first pitch is hit down the right field line, slicing foul and out of play.
Altuve just 1 for 4 yesterday, but I was glad to see him not in the lineup originally. When we got to the ballpark, he was getting an off day, and he's hit the Cardinals so well in his career, close to 400, short career at that, but he has proven to be a very tough out, has good speed at the top of the lineup.
Little floater down the right field line, drops in for a base hit, and he's thinking too, testing Beltran. The throw into second base is offline. Jose Altuve, he can run. He has 31 steals and stretched that into a double. It's Holliday, Jay, and Beltran in the outfield. Left side of the infield, Freeze and Cosma, Schumacher, Craig on the right side. Behind the plate, the mainstay, Yadier Molina. And that's presented by Dobbs. The Cardinals defense with 99 errors this year. There's 5 teams in the National League with 100 or more. That was barely fair off the bat of Altuve.
And I'm frankly surprised that he tested the arm of Carlos Beltran, who has 10 assists in right. And I guess as a stolen base guy, he's either going to test Beltran or test Yadier Molina.
I think it surprised Beltran a little bit too. Got to the ball, then looks up.
Was not his best throw.
And Altuve was on his way to second base, and you wonder if he was surprised and maybe rushed that throw just a bit. Here's Scott Moore, who's batting .242. So, Rick, what are you watching for early on out of Lance Lynn?
Well, the command and also how he handles his secondary pitches. And if his secondary pitches are effective and for strikes, it means his mechanics are good. When his mechanics go, the off-speed pitches go. And Lynn, early in the season, Dan, was using more fastballs in a variety of counts. This low fastball that sinks some, and then the one that rides up and away, and really throwing a higher percentage of fastballs. And I'd like to see that. That's still his best pitch.
1 ball, 1 strike. Room into left center. Home plate umpire tonight, Mike Estabrook. Larry Vanover down at first. Dan Bellino at second. Field and Colbreth. He's the crew chief, and he's at third. The 2-1 pitch. And Lynn just rearing back and let it fly. And he's hit 94, 95, and that pitch at 93. The 2-2.
Tony DeFrancesco, the manager for the Astros, has his team playing better. They're 8-8 in their last 16 games. DeFrancesco is a guy that has spent a lot of times in the minor leagues. He's 17 years in the minor leagues, and he has actually done some over-managing, I'm told. But he's trying to make a mark for himself.
Fly ball into shallow right. And the catch is made by Beltran. Fires into second base, and Altuve back in safely. So Scott Moore here in the first inning cannot advance the runner. It's a runner at second base and 1 out. Just the little things that add up. We talked about it a lot with the Cardinals not doing that on the most recent road trip. And Houston, who picked up loss number 100 last night. They've talked about too. Bunting, situational hitting, and defense. It's been poor.
You're not going to find very many losing teams that are fantastic at fundamentals. You just don't. They go hand in hand. You win because you do the fundamentals and because you have ability. Now, you can get the fundamentals done and not be a great team, but most of the teams that are at the bottom just struggle with fundamentals. And you know that the Astros are working at it, and the career minor league guy is certainly preaching it. But the point is, if you are overmatched ability-wise, you're probably not going to be as good at moving the runner over and getting the bunt down.
1 out and a runner at second for Brett Wallace. Had a broken bat single to left. 8th inning of the ball game last night for the lone run for Houston in their loss. This is a team that lost 106 a year ago. So back-to-back seasons, 100 or more losses. Long look by Lance Lynn, and that's strike 2.
And we've been told that DeFrancesco's job may not be around a week from now. There's talk about them hiring their next manager within a week or so. And maybe as soon as the season ends, they want to make sure they go out and get the guy that they've targeted to be the most available, best available manager, so they can kind of get him in the house in a hurry. And you'd think it would be somebody with some American League background.
Joe Pittini, the former Cardinals bench coach, spent a number of years in the minor leagues, former major league player. He's on the staff still. Craig Biggio, his name has even been mentioned as a possibility.
I know he is on the search committee. it wouldn't be the first time somebody on the search committee, in the midst of a conversation about who should manage the team, that they turn to somebody on the committee and say, how about you?
You know, it's more than just what happens on the field. That's the most important thing, wins and losses. But they're trying to also regain the trust of their fan base. So that individual has to be out speaking, you know, doing the circuit, so to speak, the fundraising efforts of various charities and whatever the case may be. But to get out and try to connect with the fans, that's in the dirt, and it's 2-2.
You manage the team and you also sell it.
And that's my point. Mike Matheny was doing that today, as many of the top sponsors were at the ballpark this afternoon. Had a chance to take a picture with Mike and hear his thoughts on the team. Says he is an eternal optimist, and still in his mind this team has not played their best baseball. Only problem is we're running out of time. The 2-2. Got him. Took something off at a changeup, and he strikes out Brent Wallace.
Well, it's a changeup he throws almost like a split. He just puts his forefinger and his pointer finger, or his middle finger, apart, and then just lets the ball come out and kind of tail down and away from a left-handed batter. And that had good command, good movement in the right direction, down and away. Hopefully that'll be a sign that his off-speed pitches are sharp tonight.
Now, Justin Maxwell has been a bright spot for them. 16 home runs. And what's interesting is that half of those have been hit when Lucas Harrell is pitching. 8 of his 16 when this right-hander makes a start. Leads their club in home runs, second in RBIs. And that's only with 307 plate appearances.
Began the year playing off the bench and pinch hitting, had 3 pinch hit home runs. And I think at some point they said, well, if you're going to be that productive, maybe you need to be in the lineup every day and bat 4 times a night.
Here's a 1-1 pitch. It's an out of play, 1-2. Going back to Mike Matheny, I wonder if part of the adjustment of being a first-time manager for him, if the commitments away from the ballpark have been more than maybe what he expected. He was telling me the other day, Rick, he goes around town, obviously very recognizable, and he's such a good guy and a nice guy. Always wants to stop, sign an autograph. Fans want to give him their advice, as we all know. Take a picture, whatever the case may be, and he's happy to do that. But it is a tug at his time, and he's a family man.
I think about anybody goes off to college for the first time, everybody tells you what it's going to be like. They may show you pictures. They may have you talk to somebody who's been, but until you experience it, you don't really know.
Leadoff double by Altuve, and he's left stranded. Cardinals coming up in the home half of the first. Carlos Beltran and Matt Holliday, Alan Craig, Yadier Molina, David Freese, Skip Schumacher, Pete Kozma, and Lance Lynn. From Springfield, Missouri, Lucas Harrell, right-hander, gets the start.
He's the Astros' best. He is a sinker ball pitcher. When you see Lucas Harrell pitch, think Jake Westbrook. He's a guy that likes to throw the ball down in the zone, get ground balls. That's his MO. And he's going to work with Chris SNYDER behind the plate. Tonight's become kind of a personal catcher for him, but not because he and SNYDER get along so well, because he and Castro don't. When they are together, it's like oil and water, and the last time he pitched with Castro behind the mound, they spent the whole game yelling at each other. So SNYDER gets the start tonight, and for some reason just a little more confident with him behind the plate is Lucas Harrell.
This season, John Jay at 309. 1 ball and 2 strikes, and as a leadoff hitter, Jay is batting 319. As he goes, in many ways, this team goes.
No question about it. He's a table setter. There's the defense. They shade him in the outfield to hit towards left center. But when John Jay gets on base, the Cardinals score.
The 2-2. John Jay was 1 for 17 against the Dodgers, and then his second hit in that series turns out to be a big one, the double that scored the game winner on Sunday.
And John Jay's been so much better since becoming the leadoff batter since early August. 335 batting average.
Fights that pitch off.
Cardinals miss Rafael Furcal. There's no question about that. Miss him defensively. If John Jay was not being as productive as he's been in that leadoff spot, they would be missing Furcal even more.
The 2-2. And that is a cold third strike. So Lucas Harrell out of Springfield, Missouri, family and friends watching tonight here on Fox Sports Midwest, picks up the strikeout. Take a look at the Astros defense, led by Jose Altuve, an all-star this year. And as Rick mentioned, Chris SNYDER is behind the plate. Despite the dip in average, and since July just over 200, the power numbers way down. Beltran with 29 home runs, which is still good enough for 5th best in the National League.
And he's been sitting on 29, or he's been in the high 20s for a very long time. Ryan Braun has certainly passed him with a flurry of home runs, but Beltran, as you mentioned, up among the league leaders, and he's been an important part of the Cardinals offense. And he's swinging the bat better in the last 4 or 5 days than he did 2 weeks ago.
Back-to-back strikeouts to start the game for Lucas Harrell. It's a Cardinals team that is first in average, second in runs, and second in RBIs in the National League. So offensively, it's put together as a great club in that regard. The problem has been at times inconsistencies with this offense. Many times the runs are coming in bunches. Defense has been poor sometimes, and there's a look at Jim Edmonds, former Cardinal center fielder.
So much fun to watch him play defense.
One ball and 2 strikes. We did not see defense even close to Edmonds with Colby Rasmus here. At times we've seen flashes of John Jay being very good, but he will go down as one of the great defensive center fielders, not just in Cardinals history, but in all of baseball.
Yeah, somebody like John Jay needs to understand that when you say he's no Jim Edmonds, we're not insulting you. We're just telling you that really very few people have played center field the way Jim Edmonds did. And he also provided a lot of punch in the middle of that lineup, the MV3, and how good he and Roland and Pujols were together. And he always had a flair for the dramatic, didn't he, as a player?
You saw that in the highlight that we showed you from the 2004 NLCS as Harrell strikes out the side. Jim, do you realize you're on TV? Of October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, 25,000 fans ages 16 and older receive a knit headband featuring the St. Louis Cardinals pink ribbon logo presented by Fuse and Schnucks. Visit Cardinals.com to get your tickets. It's Lowry, Laird, and SNYDER as we move to the top of the second. Quite an impressive bottom of the first for Lucas Harrell. Wow. Strikes out the side.
Not really very good at bats from the Cardinals side.
First pitch is a strike to Jed Lowry. 85 games this season, inning 252. You would hope that the Cardinals would come to the ballpark and you're facing Houston or Chicago this time late in the year. It's not like they don't know what's at stake. You shouldn't be lulled to sleep or think, well, it's not the Yankees we're facing or a team that's headed to postseason play. I mean, this is as important as it gets.
I don't have any doubt that the Cardinal players know that it's important and that Mike Matheny knows that it's important, and it just has not translated onto the field yet. I mean, that first inning, watching 3 strikeouts, 2 of them looks a little uninspiring, I think, if you're a Cardinal fan trying to get some early offense to help out Lance Lynn.
In steps Laird with 1 out. So it's not an easy thing to do, is catching a fly ball. Oh, he almost had that one. That's part of the Weston pop-up challenge prior to the game.
Got a glove on that one.
Got a glove on that one, a little better.
Probably in the palm of his hand where that ball hit. He probably has a nice little bruise right now as well. You hit right there in the palm on a high fly ball.
Ouch.
It leaves a mark.
Yeah, it does. 1-0 pitch to Brandon Laird, and it's taken high.
And I'm sure he was ready. I'm sure he was amped up. I'm sure he knew the importance of this series and that particular pop-up challenge.
For him.
For him.
That's right.
That was his big leagues.
Well, he kept his balance, it looked like. The second highlight that we showed you. Two balls and 1 strike.
We are teasing him only in jest. We all know that that's hard to do. Catching a fly ball is not easy. In fact, you'll see pitchers who aren't used to it during batting practice, and a lot of times they'll tell the pitchers to get out of the way. As we've talked about before, they don't even let you catch a little pop-up on the mound, for goodness sakes.
Here's a 3-1 pitch. In on his hands and fouled into the seats. Old school uniform right there. It's J.R. Richard-esque.
Yeah, I think of Jose Cruz in that uniform, Terry Poole, Mike Scott, Nolan Ryan. And I also think I'm glad I never had to wear that uniform.
Here's a 3-2. Swing and a miss. Strikeout for Lance Lynn, his second tonight. You know, Rick, we watched Lance Lynn now back in the starting rotation, and he just has that look about him again, building upon the last start that he made in Los Angeles. And we know this is what he wants to do.
And as that box on our Fox box represents the strike zone, the number of pitches that you see that hit the corners and aren't in the middle of the plate, an indication that his command is better. Molina asked for that fastball away, and not only was it away, it was perfect away on the outside corner. Asking for it away again, and there it is. Now, when he was not pitching well, Dan, that ball would kind of float back over the middle of the plate, or maybe he'd missed location by a foot, and that foot's a big difference.
0-1 pitch. Same spot, 0-2. Snyder on the year with the 7 home runs, hitting just 188.
I'm writing down the strikeout right now. You can go ahead and start planning what you're going to say on the outro to this inning.
You're pretty confident, huh?
Like I said, on this next pitch.
Here's the 0-2 pitch. What would you like me to say, Rick?
I'd like you to say, and that's Lance Lynn's third strikeout of the night. He looks sharp. Cardinals hoping to score in the bottom of the second. No score from St. Louis.
There is a long fly ball. Left field. Somehow it's going to stay in the ballpark, and there is Matt Holliday. Sorry. Lucas Harrell, bottom of the first. Boy, he looked good. He struck out the side. It began with John Jay. And then it was Carlos Beltran and Matt Holliday. 3 up and 3 down. He's set to go, taking off the jacket, and he'll face Craig Molina-Freeze when we come back. starts, high ERA, and the Cardinals hitting .333 against him, and yet it's a 2-1 record because nearly 8 runs of support per game.
And he hasn't gotten that run support in every one of the games, 7 per game. He's had a couple where he's gotten a ton of runs, so kind of evens out. But Harrell, again, a sinker ball pitcher. Surprising, I think, the Cardinals in that first inning by getting 3 straight strikeouts.
And the Cardinals put a ball in play, and that is a base hit for Allen Craig. Ricky, think about the production of Allen Craig. His first 43 games when he was in the lineup, and remember, he started on the disabled list. He had 44 RBIs in 43 games.
Well, he still leads the National League in runners in scoring position, and batting average with runners in scoring position. And his at-bats are not enough per game to qualify him for the league title, but he's getting close to that as well. By the end of the season, he should reach that. But he's been as steady a hitter in this lineup as there is, excluding perhaps the guy at the plate, Yadier Molina.
And Yadi, 2 more hits last night. He's now up to .345, his average at home this year. And that's the 4th best in all of Major League Baseball. Home, road, at the plate, behind the plate, doesn't matter. MVP type season for Yadier Molina. And if you look at the numbers and you start comparing him to others that are in that conversation for the MVP, Yadier Molina is 4th right now in average at .322, behind Melky Cabrera, McCutchen, Buster Posey at .333, and then Yadier Molina. I know a lot of people look at Posey and they say that's the guy. You know, right now he might be the front runner for MVP. You're talking about Ryan Braun. I think some of the voters will hold what took place in spring training against him. But look at what Yadi has done the last 5 games, and overall what he's meant defensively compared to Posey. It's not even close. Yadi with a high fly ball out to deep left field. And on the track, it's caught by Scott Moore. Gave it a ride and a fly ball out, the first of the inning, and it brings in David Freese.
Cardinals had a frustrating loss about a month or so ago on a play where the runner did not re-tag. It was Adrian Chambers. It was a blowout situation anyway. But once Craig passes second base, he has to retouch the base before retreating back to first. There was an appeal play against the Cardinals in that one particular game, and that's how it ended. But in this case, the reason he's gotten so far past the second base bag, if that ball drops, he wants to be able to score. So Craig did everything right there. He just remembered wisely to retouch that second base bag.
Here's David Freese, average at .292, 1 home run shy of 20.
I think one of the reasons we're hearing a lot about Buster Posey is the San Francisco Giants have been extraordinary in their marketing campaign all season long.
Oh, man.
Think about the All-Star game and the fact that the Giants, even the hurt Giants, got a lot of votes. And, you know, I'm all for kind of rooting for your home guy, but in some cases there, they just went above and beyond to kind of sell their players to other cities, et cetera. And the All-Star vote was a little bit embarrassing, frankly.
The biggest one, I guess, would be their shortstop, Crawford. Almost made it in. The 2-0 pitch.
And they had an injured player, I believe it was Freddie Sanchez, who got a lot of votes and wasn't even playing, yet was up among the leaders. And so you put Buster Posey, now you start talking MVP. Has that kind of generated enough national attention to maybe push him over for the MVP? And he becomes kind of the almost the politically correct answer, I think, when you start talking to baseball writers.
They are pitching David Freese away. Do you think about a hit and run? 3-1 count, as well as he goes to right, not running, and the pitch is hit out of play.
Certainly an option. I think Craig running and Freese hitting is not the best combination for a hit and run.
Agreed.
Because David Freese swings and misses too much. He strikes out a lot. Hey, I'll take it. I'm not complaining. He can strike out a lot and be my third baseman, but kind of limits what you can do in terms of the running game.
Cardinals twice in a spot like this last night with John Jay. They were running and ran themselves into a couple of double plays. Strike him out, throw him out. 3-2 pitch. Freese with a drive into right center field. Will it carry? It's out of here. Home run, David Freese. Opposite field for number 20. Into right center it goes, and the Cardinals have an early lead. To me, Rick, you just play right into his hands when you pitch him away.
A lot of teams have been pitching him in. But David Freese gets a pitch he can handle out over the plate, drives it the other way. And he gets to 20 before Molina does. But sooner or later, Yachty will get there as well. And that'll be 5 Cardinals with 20 or more home runs when Yachty reaches that plateau, and no other Cardinal team has ever done that.
Hit to the left side and well off the line to make the play, Brandon Laird. Schumacher is out number 2, and it brings in Pete Kozma.
There's the pitch away, and he centers it on the bat head, and that's just extraordinary power the other way. That is not down the right field line. That's not even kind of right center. I mean, that is deep right center. And that's really a power alley for David Freese.
I would assume, Rick, that the Cardinals coaching staff has gone to Pete Kozma and they said, all right, you're going to get a chance to play and play a lot. Make the routine plays. And privately, I'm sure they're saying if we get anything from him offensively, it's a bonus.
No question. Shortstop and the catcher position are the 2 positions that you primarily want defense. And if you get offense, you're thankful for it. I think there's some teams in the National League, Dan, that have outstanding hitting catchers but can't win, like Colorado.
Wallace staying with it? No, he can't make the play.
Lynn Rosario for the Rockies, Dan, is having a fantastic offensive years, but you need to have defense out of your shortstop and your catcher. Kozma catch the ball when we get some hits. That's even better. And they're calling that an error on the first baseman, Wallace. Right in his glove, bounces out. Error number 6 for him.
April, Keaton, Xavier, Cossett maybe are with us here and helping cheer on the Cardinals. There's a strike to Lance Lynn. Lynn this season is hitting .068, no home runs and an RBI. And at least that error allows Lynn to get through this order. John Jay is on deck. Much different looking second inning here for the St. Louis Cardinals, to say the least.
We were hoping so.
0-2 the count on Lance. And that's a cold third strike. The 4th strikeout for Lucas Harrell, but the Cardinals strike first. David Freese makes it 2-0. on Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by the new wireless receiver from AT&T Uverse. Visit att.com/freeyourtv. Rethink possible. MyKiaSt.Louis.com. And get the All-American Jack Combo at Jack in the Box. It's a no-nonsense burger with fries and a drink for only $4.99 plus tax at participating stores. So good to see David Freese going to right center field. Picks up home run number 20.
I like what he's done defensively lately, especially. He's shown a little bit more range going to his left, and really, as the play that you make when you charge, whether it's a bunt or just a slow roller, I think he's become very, very good at that particular play.
Now it's a right fielder for Houston. Rick, the other thing, too, is that at times when he's gone in a rut, speaking of Freese, at the plate, it really has not carried over to what he's done in the field. And I think when you look at David Freese this time last year to compare to what we're getting this year defensively, it's night and day difference.
I think he's more confident there. He knows that he's going to be in. He's not going to get taken out defensively. And, part of that, of course, and it's well chronicled that was kind of to get him off his ankles and to make sure he could kind of rest some. And part of that reason for putting Descalzo in later innings a year ago was just that. But, it's got to wear on you a bit to think, I want to be out there defensively when this game is coming to an end. And Freese is certainly getting an opportunity to do that.
First innings at times have been a problem for Lance Lynn, but in this case, we're taking a look at the best run support in the National League, and Lynn is used to pitching with the lead. He's got one tonight.
Gonzalez has a lot of wins. He's getting run support. So does Lance Lynn. He has 15 of them. Kyle Loesch tied him last night with his 15th. But Lance Lynn got a lot of those early on. Paredes is the third strikeout victim for Lance Lynn. Easy to be all smiles after a good start, isn't it?
And right now, some of the national media is talking about Loesch being a part of that group of 5, maybe 7 pitchers that is talking about the Cy Young Award, and probably 3 more starts left for Kyle. Join the Fox Midwest girls and you have a chance to learn football. It's the Football Academy. September 24th. Go to stlouisrams.com. Lucas Harrell retired, back to the top of the lineup, and Jose Altuve doubled and left stranded back in the first. So first time through the lineup, Lance Lynn with 3 strikeouts and allowed a base hit, and that was to Altuve. Rick, you mentioned how Houston potentially would have their manager for next season and beyond in place. I wonder how much thought they've given to Jose Oquendo.
Boy, you'd like to think he'd be an option for them and somebody of interest to them. Jose's been in that conversation before to be a big league manager and plenty of experience on winning teams. I think there's certainly a consideration if you're looking at this Astros club and the makeup of this club, as well as their minor league stars in the making. There's a heavy flavor of Latin players, and so at some point I think to have a manager that's bilingual is close to being a necessity. He doesn't have to be Latin, but he needs to be bilingual. The Cardinals manager is bilingual. Mike Matheny studied it in college because his college coach said, hey, you may be a manager someday and you're going to play professional baseball, and so take Spanish.
Number 1 overall pick is from Puerto Rico. Here's a 2-2 from Lance Lynn. 3-2. It's sharply to short. And Cosma is there to make the catch. The top of the lineup due up for St. Louis, and that means their leadoff man, John Jay. Then Carlos Beltran and the slugger, Matt Holliday. It's baseball on Fox Sports Midwest. Low pricing. Find out more at Cardinals.com. The top three in the lineup struck out for St. Louis as Lucas Harrell struck out the side in the bottom of the first. Jay shoots one foul and out of play. Nice crowd on hand. Wednesday night. Cardinals and Astros finish up the series tomorrow afternoon.
The season has had such a funny feel to it, Dan, because I think anybody that's followed the Cardinals from day one would say that this is a team that is, I don't think underachieved is the right word, but I would say they have underperformed. It's a team that has good numbers in a lot of ways. They just don't have as many wins to match. And yet, despite all of that, you throw all that in a pot and say, we very well may be headed for playoff baseball. I mean, it's almost a surprise to us to think that we're going to be talking about October baseball again for the St. Louis Cardinals, and that's one of the great things about this organization, how year after year they have good teams.
John Jay retired. By the way, Milwaukee, top of the sixth, leading Pittsburgh by the score of 2-0. Think about it. Since 2000, this is a team that has had a chance to go into postseason play just about every year. So well over a decade now, and from the Houston perspective, they're hearing about a rebuilding project of a minimum of 3 to 5 years. And yet the Cardinals are finding a way to reload, and they're going to do it with some very young talent that's coming through. Tavares is close. Colton Wong is close. Carlos Martinez. Seen Rosenthal and Shelby Miller, these young pitchers that are firing smoke out of the bullpen. The future is really bright, and part of that future is here on what could be a championship team.
I like the word you used by saying that all those players are close, because I think that's a problem that other teams make. They bring players up when they're close instead of waiting.
Dan and Rick with you. Jim will have the post-game show. Freeze with a 2-run homer back in the second inning. I guess that's a luxury the Cardinals have, because
to be patient.
Yeah, and they've plugged in veterans that have been the right fit at the right time.
If you have a high-round draft choice who has a ton of talent and you bring him to the big leagues and you say someday this guy's really going to pull it together and be good, it normally doesn't happen. You got to let him develop into that player along the way. instead of rushing him to the big leagues, because he'll get bad habits, he'll get defeated, especially on a team that's not a very good team. Why would you want to rush a star player to the big leagues? The Cardinals, with Alan Craig, could afford to send a guy back to AAA who was mashing the baseball because they had other guys doing it, and they could let him develop into the hitter he is now.
And you think about drafts and how important this is the next 2 or 3 years for every franchise, but certainly for Houston. They said they want to build with the draft and with those choices. As Holliday swings and misses, and it's 3-2, but you have to have a little luck along the way. Your top picks, you can't miss on them, and then you got to have guys like an Alan Craig who's on deck. Some good finds.
Joe Kelly.
Yeah. Matt Carpenter. And Holliday is claiming that was low. He strikes out for the second time. With a Bomberito Sports Update, Jim Hayes standing by. And who would have thought that Milwaukee would be in this spot? They are 2.5 games out. LA is 2 back, following their loss earlier today. And Milwaukee, they trade Zach Greinke, lose their shortstop early on, trying to find any right combination in their bullpen, and yet here they are, just 2.5 games out for the second wild card spot.
And no Prince Fielder.
Big loss there too,
I'll say.
Here is Moore, and it's 1 ball and 1 strike.
And they are playing like a team that is on 5 more gears faster than everybody else right now. They stole 7 bases against the Pirates. They played fast and furious here in St. Louis against the Cardinals, made us look slow and lethargic. And they are playing with a lot of energy. And I think that kind of excitement creates emotion for them. And again, they've got the speed to do that. I mean, they're stealing bases because they're fast, too. But I think it is creating an energy that has become contagious for the Brewers. I still don't think their pitching's good enough, but if they keep scoring runs and keep playing exciting baseball, they're going to be in until the end.
They have 2 young pitchers they've called up this year. They feel they're going to be stars. Remember, they let go of Wolf. They still have Gallardo, who's been very good at times.
Fiers is pitching well.
Absolutely. They hit for power, even minus Fielder, and the steals, as you talked about, and they've got Ryan Braun.
And Axford's back on track.
Yes, he is. Here's a 3-2 pitch to Scott Moore. And it's taken high, and it's a leadoff walk, and we're underway here in the top of the 4th. This Major League Baseball season on Fox, and we are proud to support Boys and Girls Club of America. If you'd like to learn more, visit greatfutures.org/Fox Sports.
Well, that's not what you wanted, Dan, a leadoff walk with a 2-run lead.
Not at all. This guy could tie it up with one swing. Seeing a lot of new faces here with Houston because of all the trades and movement with their team. And that's across the board in September, where the numbers have gotten outrageous as far as the call-ups. It's made for a much longer game, situational matchups earlier in games.
How about the game in Los Angeles when Don Mattingly used every one of those call-ups in a extra inning game, but I think it only went 11. I believe he used 10 pitchers in that game.
A lot of talk that Major League Baseball will cut that back to 30 players next year. One of the ideas is 30 players, and then before every game you scratch 5. Here's a fly ball into left center. Wallace retired. Brings in Maxwell, who flied out to right.
Location of this pitch right down central. Not the target he was looking for, but 94 miles an hour helped.
You would have to think, Rick, that the union would step in and say, whoa, wait a minute, we like all these jobs here at the Major League level. One of those things that may still stand even after this year. Strike one.
When baseball decides to make changes in the way the game is played, umpired, managed, the way the draft works, when they make changes, they make micro changes. And I think that's been part of the allure of this game for as many years as this game has flourished, is there's a lot of, hey, that's the way Ty Cobb played. And there's some value in that. But clearly it's not 1920 anymore either, and you have to adjust. But baseball will do it slowly, I think, to their credit. Others would disagree. They want to see faster and more macro changes. But I think the game is so tied to statistics, Dan. If you make changes that are macro, it throws off everybody's love for the history, because they'll say, he hit 350, but that was a different game then. And the numbers are such a part of this game, more so than on any other sport.
For sure. 0-2 the count here on Maxwell. Runner at first is Scott Moore. This day and age, from a fan's perspective, you just get disgusted when you hear about work stoppages in professional sports, and yet the one sport, surprisingly, that it doesn't have a work stoppage and it continues to play year in and year out, Major League Baseball.
We had our moments.
Oh, did you ever? And you were part of those. Not just being a player, but you were a rep.
Yeah, I was on the inner circle of 6 players back in the late 80s, and Rick Honeycutt, Paul Molitor, Oral Hershiser, Dave Winfield, Phil Bradley, and myself were the negotiating team. And it was an eye-opener. And I'm not saying we had as much input in as Don Fehr and the rest of his staff did. Clearly we trusted them, but you know, it was hard. It's very hard to go through a work stoppage situation, because you want to play, you know, the fans want to play, and the owners, they really want to play too, because that's their business. So it's distasteful in a lot of ways, and you like to be able to get through it as quietly as possible.
2-2 the count here on Maxwell. Got him. Pitch before that ran in on his hands. That time Molina sets up outside, and LYNN hits his spot.
There's his delivery, the downhill delivery. Chris Duncan talked about that in the pregame show, and all pitchers need to work downhill, but Lance Lynn is definitely a guy that when he starts to come around the ball, things get sloppy. Breaking pitch is not as sharp, and the fastball isn't as effective. So the downhill delivery, I think, has been helped by his simplification of his mechanics.
Now it's Jed Lowry. Lowry flied out to left, first time up. Always find it interesting, the game within the game. You can see Schumacher peeking in to try to get the sign, see what's coming. Then he puts his glove up to his mouth. Open mouth, closed mouth to give a signal to Pete Kozma and who's going to cover for steals. Also maybe a shift in the defense. This time he moves over, position right there just over his head. Skip had moved over about 3 or 4 steps after he got the sign and was in the right spot, just lined over his head.
So what he's looking for is if it's an off-speed pitch, he's going to think they're going to pull it just a little bit more. And if it's a fastball, he may be a little bit later, and so you might want to cheat towards up the middle. And so what that pitch selection is matters, but it also matters as to who covers second base on a stolen base attempt. And really, an infielder ought to wait as long as they can, not vacate their position, but you have to cheat a little bit. And so if it's an off-speed pitch, Skip Schumacher on an off-speed pitch would want Kozma to cover second base. If it's a pitch away from a right-handed hitter, he would want Kozma to cover, and that's what's going on between the two of them.
Runners at first and second. We're in the top of the fourth and a 2-run lead for St. Louis. David Freese with a 2-run homer back in the bottom of the second. 1-0 pitch in the dirt, 2 balls and no strikes. Now, one thing that expanded rosters allow these managers to do is put their starters on a short leash. Should never run out of pitching. That should never be a cause of concern in any game in September.
Don't you think that becomes a crutch sometimes, though, where because you have them, you use them?
Trying to keep guys sharp, too?
Yeah, and you may have 8 guys out there, but do you want them all to pitch, really? I mean, you can't be real excited about all 8 of them.
Molina gives it a look, and it's out of play.
I mean, that's just natural. Laird came over from the Yankees. Spent a little time in the big leagues with New York a year ago. And the younger brother of Gerald Laird.
Definitely different body types.
I would agree with you 100%.
Yankees played in game 1 of their doubleheader earlier, and in that game against Toronto, Omar Vizquel passed Babe Ruth on the all-time hit list. How about that? Did you play with him,
Babe
Vizquel?
Ruth? No.
I knew you didn't with Ruth. No, that's debatable too.
No, Vizquel
was not that old.
Vizquel was a little bit younger than me, so I did not. Even though he's been around a while, I did not.
He's 45.
I know he is. I know he is.
It's unbelievable.
The only guy that I played with that's still playing, I believe, is Jim Thome.
With Baltimore now.
So I want him to just keep going. It was Julio Franco and Jim Thome, and I thought Julio would play forever.
I remember you telling me that Jim Thome asked you to be his agent.
He did, on a bus in Double-A. I was on my way down, he was on his way up, and the dumbest answer of my life is when I said no.
And now here you are.
I said I'd rather be with Dan McLaughlin talking about St. Louis Cardinals baseball in September.
season when you place a full season ticket deposit for the 2013 season package. Visit cardinals.com/season for all the details, and don't wait. Start enjoying the perks of being a Cardinals season ticket holder right now. We have fans watching us tonight in Scotland.
How about that?
Steve Luby just to say hi to family and friends. He's a big Cardinals fan, has been for years. He's in Scotland watching MLB.TV. Here's Alan Craig. That pitch is taken for a strike at the knees.
I would be watching Cardinal baseball too, but I'd be playing golf first if I was in Scotland.
My understanding, that's why he's there. And if you had decided to be Jim Thome's agent, you would be in Scotland on your private jet and not talking baseball with me. 2 balls and 1 strike.
Getting more melancholy by the moment.
You're not the only one.
Now the good news is the Cardinals have a lead in the early going against the Astros.
2-2. Buddy Al. Hungo, the mad Hungarian, he's been in Europe for a while, so he'll be back for, I believe, the final week of the regular season.
He will. Be good to see him. And we know he knows what's going on, and he's following every day of Cardinal baseball as well. And a lot of good baseball ahead, Dan. There are 14 games left, including this one tonight. And you asked me last night what number of wins would the Cardinals need to have, and we kind of put it at 87. And I'm going to stick with that. That would mean the Cardinals need to win 9 of those 14 games.
Broken bat slowly hit to Altuve. 1 away. Remember, there was a lot of talk about Roger Clemens coming back and pitching for Houston. Jim Crane and the ownership group of the Astros have been open to that idea. Now, Clemens has said he wants to do this against a contending team. And really, Rick, there'd be no reason to pitch him unless you're at home to get the gate. And they've got a series next week with the Cardinals, also Pittsburgh remaining at home.
6 of their 7 series remaining are against contending teams. So you're really only talking about the Chicago Cubs series. That would be the only possibility. 6 of their last 7.
That's fouled back by Yachty.
They're already through some of that, but again, the Cubs are the only team. They've played Pittsburgh, they played Philadelphia, and so they have only the Cubs as a non-contending team left.
You wouldn't want to bring him back on the road, you wouldn't think. You want the gate.
So you can't do what you want to do.
You wouldn't think. Cardinals will be Pittsburgh beginning on Monday, 24th. And Molina cranks one out to center field. It's well hit, and this ball is gone. Up on the green grass over the 400-foot sign, and Yadier Molina with home run number 20. History when you think about all these home runs hit by the Cardinals this year. You've got Beltran at 29, Holliday 27, Craig at 21, Molina at 20, and also David Freese at 20. So 20 or more, 5 different guys in this lineup.
Yachty goes through the receiving line in the Cardinals dugout, and there they are. 5 Cardinals, 20 or more, the first Cardinals team in history. They have 5 players with 20 or more. Congratulations to Yachty and the 4 others.
2 balls and no strikes on David Freese earlier tonight. His 20th home run. Yachty with number 20. So 5 players in this lineup, 20 or more home runs. What a year for Molina. That's RBI number 68 for Yachty to make it 3-0.
So a sinker ball pitcher, Dan, has given up a couple of home runs here.
And Lucas Harrell is not happy about his location here. He's starting to get frustrated. Nowhere close on that pitch.
Molina crushes this ball. It's a sinker. It just doesn't sink. It's up in the middle of the plate. Yachty has a perfect swing on it. Again, hits it off the barrel of the bat. Straightaway center field. Both Cardinal home runs over 400 feet.
First walk that's issued by Lucas Harrell. High school football continues this week. Friday we're streaming Fort Zumwalt West at Howell, Jeff City at DeSmet, Rockhurst at Blue Springs South. Live at FoxSportsMidwest.com. Saturday morning, catch a replay of Jeff City and DeSmet on TV on Fox Sports Midwest. The Bommarito Automotive Prep Zone football schedule. Here is Skip Schumacher playing way off the line for Skip. To their benefit, first time up as he grounded it in the hole. Third and short. Third baseman was able to make the play. Los Angeles dropped a game earlier to Washington, game 1 of their doubleheader. Zimmerman 11-8. That was their 90th win for the Nationals. It's the 7th time that Davey Johnson has guided a team to 90 or more wins in a season. Last time he did it was with Baltimore. Last time they had a winning season in 1997. Now the Cardinals have Washington and Cincinnati, the final homestand of the season. Both those teams should have their divisions wrapped up at that point. We'll see how they want to play it. Sometimes a team can lose a little focus. Maybe you don't play your regulars, or you sit a pitcher or two to rest them for the postseason. May see that in that final week.
Well, you're going to have to be very careful with that, because the teams that are going to be wild card teams aren't really going to have any time to regroup, and they're going to just be kind of playing on the adrenaline from the day before. Going to be a crazy kind of wild card schedule if multiple teams tie for that second wild card in either division. It creates a travel nightmare.
Really does.
For both teams. Actually, not only both teams, but the team that they would be playing won't necessarily know. The first wild card I'm talking about won't necessarily know what city they're going to until late the day before.
Yeah, and explain that a little bit here, because you have the first wild card, Cardinals looking for the second wild card. You could have
somebody's going to play Atlanta,
a team that is tied for that second wild card too,
or multiple teams tied for that second wild card. Then you've got to have a 2- or 3-way playoff, and Atlanta is trying to figure out, you know, where are we going. But if there are 3 teams tied for that second wild card, that's where the mess comes in. Atlanta would know they're playing at home if it's just 2 that are vying for that second wild card. But if there are 3 within that 3-team playoff, it is a nightmare of schedule.
It's a strikeout number 7 for Lucas Harrell. Pete Kozma reached on an error by Brett Wallace, first time up.
5 of those strikeouts looking. We saw that trend developing recently. The Cardinals did that against Joe Blanton. Kind of like Harrell, not really an overpowering pitcher, but caught looking quite a bit against him in LA.
Cardinals this year against right-handed pitching are actually 3 games below 500. Against the lefties, St. Louis 28-17. We mentioned over the weekend and again last night, left-handed pitching historically has given the Cardinals fits. And yet they're 11 games above the 500 mark against lefties this year. Cosma had a triple last night. And again, the check on the runner, David Freese. Harold graduated from Ozark, Missouri High School in 2004. First team All-State that year. He was 10-1. Another check on Freese. He's being treated right now like Vince Coleman.
I'd be willing to bet David Freese is not running.
I'm in agreement with you.
But Mr. Harold does not believe that.
Here's a 1-1 pitch. And Cosma in on his hands, pops it up behind home plate and into the seats. Now, Lucas Harrell was picked up and claimed off waivers from the White Sox. He has had major league experience prior to time with Houston. With Chicago in 2010, he was 1-0 in 8 appearances. Last season, made 3 appearances, then put on waivers. Houston picked him up. Finished up with them going 0-2 in 6 games.
This is the pitching matchup, one of the 2 that you're worried about in this series, because Harold can be good. The pitching matchup tomorrow is supposed to be Bud Norris against Jaime Garcia, but Bud Norris has the flu today and may not be able to answer the bell tomorrow. He's back at the hotel, and we may not see Bud Norris, and Cardinal fans know how good he has been against St. Louis.
Freese is running, and he is out at second base. Caught stealing.
He must have known something we didn't know.
Third base runner caught stealing in this series. All right, thank you, Jim. We'll see you on the post-game show a little later in this game as well. Cardinals have a lead of 3-0. 2 home runs hit in this game. A 2-run homer by Freese and a solo homer by Yadier Molina. Chris SNYDER will lead it off as the top of 5 rolls in. 7, 8, and 9 for Houston. And a ground ball that is hit to short. Kozma steps, throws, and makes the play. Fans tonight enjoying the ball game in Big Mac Land. And don't forget, McDonald's offering $1 off discounts on McCafe products. 2 to 5 every day on smoothies, shakes, ice drinks, all at McDonald's. Cincinnati leading their ball game 5-1. Phillies trailing in the bottom of the 7th. That's a 2-1 lead for the Mets. Now in the bottom of the 8th, Milwaukee leading their game 3-0. Jim just told you about the big lead for the Dodgers here in Game 2 against Washington.
And only 5 hits in this game, but the Cardinals have made their 3 hits count. A couple of home runs. Freese and Molina, and how fitting that they both were able to hit home runs to reach that milestone of 20 in the same game.
Miguel Cabrera home run for Detroit. They lead Oakland. That's in the bottom of the 7th, 5-0. Key game there. Think about the wild card and also division races for both those teams. And that's a 1-out walk. It brings in the pitcher Harold. Second walk issued by Lance Lynn. Email the booth. Brought to you by carsoup.com. Derek in Olivet, Missouri. When a player gets traded, will either team pay for his moving expenses?
The answer to that question is yes. Actually, the team you're getting traded to will pay for your expenses, and having been through that experience, you end up in a new city and people are taking care of you and they're giving you the new colored shoes and they're handing you expense money, and generally your wife is back with the kids packing the house for you and moving, doing all the hard work. But the player is generally very well taken care of.
Harold gets the bunt down up the first base line. Craig to Schumacher covering the bag at first. Alan Craig, by the way, when he was in college and in high school, is a natural shortstop. So for him to hop off the bag isn't that big of a deal. And he played all over the place in college, primarily, though, at shortstop.
Something the Cardinals have had trouble doing lately, getting a perfect bunt down. Harrow hits from the left side, has a good bat angle, and deadens the ball to the right side perfectly.
Now it's Altuve.
And we were talking, Dan, about the moving expenses, and Alan Craig certainly had times where he went up and went down. And so even in the minor leagues, they'll take care of your expenses, your moving expenses. But what's always funny, and all minor leaguers will talk about it, when you go from A to AA, they'll tell you, okay, the team's in wherever, you're in Little Rock. You'll get there. I mean, it'll be about 3 hours and you'll get there. But if you're going from AA down to A ball, usually takes you 3 days to get there.
Sure it does.
It's just the reality. Can't get there, can't get a flight, don't have the money. I'm bummed.
Baseball postseason on Fox and TBS. The excitement begins October 5th with the wild card on TBS.
You guys are dancing Gangnam Style.
You want to say that again? What?
Gangnam Style. Oh, Dan, that's fun. You ought to try it.
How'd you learn how to do it? So we get a look at Pete Kozma.
Instructional video. You and I are going clubbing later.
No. Trust me, we're not doing that.
We got a day game tomorrow.
If you're watching at Fox in LA, that's up for grabs. Check swing. And he did not go.
We have fans that can make good plays here in St.
Instructional
Louis.
video for a dance? Really? Oh my goodness. Keith Hernandez, great to have you back.
I thought he was doing a game tonight.
I think you need to go clubbing with that guy. You really have a lot of fun. Here's a 3-2 pitch. Up the middle, and it's off the glove of Harrell, and he makes the play.
Nice reaction by Harrell. That was base hit up the middle had he not put that glove up at the last minute. And all sinker ball pitchers tend to be good fielders. They have to be, because there's a lot of action up the middle generally. Guys are hitting the ball into the turf, and you've got to be a guy with quick reflexes.
Tom Mee, our director, with a fascination about the 82 Cardinals. There's a strike to Lance Lynn.
A lot of the 82 Cardinals in town this week. They were here Monday for Whitey Herzog's golf tournament. Plenty of them. Not even just the normal cast of characters. Doug Bear was here. Steve Braun. Glenn Brummer talking about stealing home. Jeff Lottie.
1-2. Apparently Keith Hernandez decided to stick around and come tonight in full uniform. I mean, that is a good look. When you come to the ballpark, if you can find that plastic helmet that your 5-year-old has been kicking. Couple of hops to short. Looked like an older Mike Martz next to him. What's on tap? It's Norris and Garcia. Budweiser, what's on tap? So what we've learned tonight is that you could have been an agent. You have learned some type of polka from an instructional video. And Keith Hernandez is here tonight.
Here to educate.
Here's John Jay, and he looks at strike one. He's 0 for 2.
Can I add something else that we've learned?
Oh, sure. Why not?
That Lance Lynn may be back on track.
Now, that's something I'd like to talk about.
He was good in L.A. on a start where the Cardinals really needed him. First of the 4-game set there in L.A., and there was a lot of stress and a lot of tension in that particular series. The Cardinals had just gotten swept by the Padres, and he was not happy about being sent to the bullpen. It was pretty clear about that, and so here's his chance to be a starter. So a lot of pressure on Lance for that particular start, but he really responded. And he's pitching well again tonight. Only 2 hits through 5 innings.
Wallace steps on the bag. Where's Keith Hernandez? For St. Louis, only 5 hits total in this game. 2 of the 5 hits, though, have been home runs. Here's Scott Moore against Lance Lynn. A high fly ball into right center. John Jay is over, and he makes the catch. If you'd like to be here in person next time the Cardinals are in action, that means tomorrow. Just head to StubHub, official fan-to-fan ticket marketplace of the world champions. Rick is the director of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes and apparently likes to go dancing late at night. Clubbing, if you will.
Wait till you see the Gangnam Style. You're going to like it, Dan. Maybe between innings. I'll show you.
Do you have to? In on the hands of Brett Wallace. Rick, I got to tell you, it was a pleasure working with you, and you and Hungo will do a bang-up job starting tomorrow from here on out.
Oh, I bet Hungo knows what it is.
1-1 pitch to Wallace. Right down the middle.
About the way he's attacking the strike zone, too. There's not a lot of deep counts from Lance Lynn. He's not behind in the count as much as he had been his last few starts before going to the bullpen. He's that confident pitcher again.
Here's a 1-2 pitch.
Wow, that is in the kitchen.
You know, we were hearing so much about fatigue with Lance Lynn. Throw that out the window. Maybe he did need a little break. Who knows? But right now, there's no fatigue with Lance Lynn.
It probably didn't hurt, but we talked about it being as much mechanics as anything else and being kind of in the right arm slot. And that's one of the things that we talked about with the Steven Strasburg case. And most people you talk to about Strasburg still think the Nationals are doing the wrong thing. If a guy is in a good arm slot, it is a different number of pitches than if a guy's struggling. If a guy's struggling, you can throw you can have a 2-inning start and your arm's killing you the next day.
Maxwell digs in with 2 outs this week on Fox NFL Sunday. The Rams go head-to-head with Jay Cutler. and the Bears in Chicago. And coverage begins with the Built Ford Tough Fox NFL Sunday pregame show at 11. Could be an awful lot of fun. Head to Chicago. You see the Cubs and Cards. Stick around for Rams and Bears. We're in the top of the 6th, and there's 2 outs and nobody on. How's the Twitter world treating you tonight, Rick?
Well, some good, some bad, as always.
Gangnam Style.
Yeah. There's a few that believe that now that I've mentioned it, that craze is officially over. That's my favorite tweet so far during the game.
Just became uncool because you're doing it.
That's right.
1-2 on Maxwell. Do the head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Knees. That's what I'm about at right now, you know?
Yeah.
3-year-old twins, 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. Oh, yeah. I could teach you all about that. 2-2 the count.
We go through phases, don't we?
Oh, yeah. And how old are your kids now?
25 and 21.
And Drew was an intern here this summer, right?
He was. Enjoyed his time as a employee here at the ballpark, interning, and found out that there's an awful lot of things going on at the ballpark every night other than just the game. Of course, we know that, but just to get to hear him talk about all the fun things that happen that the promotions department does and the marketing folks that make this an entertaining experience for Cardinal fans. It's nice to have kind of an inside track on that.
Helps when you win as well. That's the best promotion. The Cardinals are doing that right now. It's 3-0. Home half of the 6 rolls in. Beltran is 0 for 2 and has looked not at his best, to say the least, in his first 2 at-bats, but he could change that with 1 swing.
And that's where he's dangerous. Seems as if he's had a hard time picking the ball up out of the hand of the Astros starter Harrell. He really just waved at a couple of pitches. He was called out looking his first at-bat.
Hits it sharply to short this time. And there's 1 away. Cardinals baseball on Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by AT&T, the nation's largest 4G network. AT&T, rethink possible. By Ford, the official vehicles of the Cardinals. And by the State of Missouri Tobacco Quit Line. Call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. Rick Horton will be starring in the remake of Staying Alive. You're the new John Travolta.
No comment.
Tim Garcia is sporting the Keith Hernandez mustache. He's also up here with us. As Holliday hits it sharply past the shortstop, played it off to the side, and in doing so, Holliday is able to reach.
Well, the Astros broadcasters were telling us that Lowry really has had decreased range of late, and here's a pretty good example of that. This ball hit right on the nose by Holliday, down and in, but really, basically just a half a step to his left is all Lowry could get. He just really seemed to be kind of stuck in his position at shortstop, and not that that would have been an easy play anyway.
Now it's Alan Craig. Cardinals with 2 home runs tonight. Short lead at first by Holliday. Inside to Craig.
Base hit number 4 for the Cardinals. That's the way it was ruled.
To the right side, Altuve out at second. Tremendous play by Altuve to his left.
Well, we talk about range, and then you see the other side of it. You see a guy having good range as he displays it going to his left to take a hit away from Alan Craig. He had farther to go than Lowry did, but not only does he catch it, but he spins at the same time and gets the lead runner. Very athletic move by Altuve. And Holliday going in very hard at second base.
That's a base hit into right field. Shift was on for Yadier Molina. He guides it into right. That's a cannon from right field coming in. But hustling all the way, Alan Craig. We saw last night the shift for Daniel Descalso, as well as the shift for Molina. You and I, on both those instances, didn't agree with it.
Yeah,
and
no question about it.
Molina's so good at doing this.
And when a guy's got the ability to hit the ball the other way, and Yachty certainly has that, why you'd want to put a shift on him and open up an entire right side of the infield? You're just asking for trouble. I have no idea why they believe that that's a good idea. Hector Ambriz has been warming up for the Astros.
wait to see that on Fox Sports Midwest, the season debut for Chris Carpenter. And that'll be against the Chicago Cubs. We'll see that at 12:30. Fox Sports Midwest, Wrigley Field. Cubs, Cardinals, and Carpenter. Here is David Freese with 2 outs. Panel today, there was Joe Buck, Mike Matheny, Adam Wainwright. The most commonly asked question or comment was all about Chris Carpenter. Everybody wanted to know from the panel of folks that were there, how's his health? What do you expect? Are you going to piggyback somebody behind Carpenter on Friday in case things don't go to plan? Does he pitch in the play? I mean, everything. Fans are energized by this guy coming back, and they should be.
No question. I would say there's a lot of I don't know answers, though, to all those questions that you just asked. And I don't think those are evasive answers. I think those are I don't know. Chris Carpenter said we'll just have to wait and see what's around the corner. I mean, how do you know? I mean, it could be that he's lights out. It could be that he can go a few innings. It could be that he's not as sharp as you'd like to think he is. I mean, all those things are possibilities. It does not diminish at all the effort for Carpenter to get back, which still amazes me. And I think it has energized his teammates. I think there's a lot of expectations for him to pitch well, which I think I've tried to temper a little bit, because I think a guy going out there and competing in the big leagues after not pitching for so long is not that simple to do.
0-2 the count on David Freese. Hector Ambriz is into the ball game for Houston, but just like you and everybody else, let's find out.
Yeah,
I can't wait.
Oh, it's tremendous. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, 2 pitch to Freese is in the dirt. Ball scoots away, and Molina, the only runner that advances. Should mention the Cardinals made history earlier tonight. Home run by Freese, home run by Yachty, to give the Cardinals 5 in their lineup this 2012 season that have hit 20 or more home runs. A 2-run homer back in the first, a walk in the fourth, and a chance to do some damage here for David Freese. 1-2 pitch, and he went after it and strikes out. Cardinals strand 2, but they lead it 3-0 as we head to the 7th. Leading by the score of 3-0. We're in the 7th inning. Let's turn to our trivia question here tonight, presented by AT&T. Name the 2 Cardinals who have won the National League Triple Crown. Rogers Hornsby being one. Did it twice, as we talked about earlier. Joe Medwick back in 1937. I believe the last National Leaguer to do it. Joe Medwick.
Such a hard thing to do. You're talking about a guy that has the best power and the best average in the league, and you don't often pitch to those guys either in terms of the RBI. So you've got to be on a good team, or at least being on a good team helps.
It's sharply, but it's foul off the bat of Jed Lowry, the switch hitter and shortstop.
Carl Yastrzemski and Frank Robinson did it in back-to-back years in the American League.
Here's a 1-2 pitch. A pitch at 93 miles an hour. Lance Lynn is due up third for St. Louis. Pitch count is at 97. Off speed pitch and a ground ball to second. 1 away. Situation of expanded rosters that we talked about here, Rick, and with Lynn due up third for the Cardinals, a question I think at this point would be, would you even think about stretching him out one more inning if this is very efficient?
I like what he's doing. I'm not
I do
particularly interested in him coming out of this game. The pitch count is closing in on 100, though, and I think at normal circumstances you kind of look to your bullpen.
One ball and 1 strike.
The other side of it, Dan, is you want to keep building the confidence and the positive momentum of Lance Lynn. And he is,
good point, too,
been extraordinary tonight, and why not just let him have a positive experience and then kind of move on?
This is well hit out into center field. Jay is on the move. John Jay looks up and it's off the wall. Brandon Laird trots into second base. That's only the 3rd hit for Houston tonight. Day baseball tomorrow. We have 4 straight day games coming up. Scheduled to be Bud Norris against Jaime Garcia. We know that Garcia will go, but Norris is in question, and here comes Mike Matheny, and it looks like Lance Lynn's night is through.
Harold didn't want to leave when his manager went to get him, and neither does Lance Lynn, but he has a lot to be happy about, and the Cardinal fans give him a very nice round of applause as he exits.
MLB.com/fan guide to register for a chance to win a VIP experience for two to a 2012 MLB World Series game. Presented by Scott's, the official lawn care company of Major League Baseball.
Edward Mojica, the Cardinals reliever, has been very good. 0-3 record, but the ERA low. Lance Lynn all smiles, and he should be. 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, only 3 hits allowed. And wouldn't that be a great boost to the Cardinal rotation to have Lance Lynn pitching the way he did in the early going?
Runner at second base in a 3-0 St. Louis lead. One ball and no strikes on Chris Snyder. He rips it out to center field. Jay on the move, makes the catch. The last second he puts the glove up and makes the play. It's a rocket out to left center field.
Well, you explained that very well, because that ball was almost by John Jay by the time he put his glove up. He was most interested in getting the right line on that line drive in the right angle, and he runs the ball down, and then he sticks his glove up at the last second to catch it. The ball's almost by him. I mean, that's traveling quickly. That's slow motion right there. So that is a quarter of a second by the time he lifts his glove up and catches that baseball right before it flies past it.
Right fielder pops it foul and out of play. And Jim Edmonds appreciates a play like that. Both these guys we were talking about the other day, they weren't the fastest, but they get very good jumps.
Yeah, Jim Edmonds had a clear advantage in terms of his ability to throw the baseball. He had a very strong arm, an accurate arm. John Jay is accurate, I would say, and he also is a good decision maker on where he throws the ball. You seldom see him throwing to the wrong base, which is a fundamental, basic fundamental of being an outfielder.
Jim is talking with the DeWitt family there in the front row. It's upstairs, 1 ball and 2 strikes. One-two pitch. Jimmy, if you're wondering, is splitting time between St. Louis and also California. One and two. Mojica has been outstanding for the Cardinals, and former first-round pick Zach Cox going to the Marlins for Edward Mojica. Well, Jeff Luhnow did have success with drafts with guys like Craig and some of the others that were not top picks. Some of the top picks did not pan out, at least not here in St. Louis. Schumacher makes the play. Time to stretch, and the Redbirds have the lead of 3-0 here in St. Louis. 7. Nissan drives of the game. David Freese got things going with a 2-run shot into right center field. Yachty would follow, and that's given the Cardinals a little bit of history here tonight. 5 players with 20 or more home runs this season. Broken bat. It's slowly to the left side and still staying with it. Laird to make the play. And there's one away. Christy Yealing, who is part of the front office here in St. Louis and ticket sales with the Cardinals. Congratulations to Christy Yealing as Thomas Matthew Yealing arrived tonight at 6:15. Christie was due on Sunday and was still at the ballpark helping out with a season ticket holder event last night. Told her make sure that nothing gets too exciting here tonight. Take it easy. So everything went as planned today, and mom, baby, and dad, everybody doing great. Congratulations to Christie. Here's Pete Kozma, 1-0 pitch. 1 ball and 1 strike.
Adrian Chambers in the on-deck circle. I wondered whether there may be a consideration to go further with Mujica. He had the day off yesterday because Kyle Loesch was able to go 7 innings. So you had your 7th inning guy with a day off. And Mitchell Boggs has been dealing with some back issues, so I thought maybe there'd be a chance we'd see Mujica back out for the 8th.
And he chased a ball in the dirt, strikes out. Throw down to first, and there's 2 away. Hoping that things get serious tonight, because if the Cardinals will score 6, that means any size drink, just 50 cents all day tomorrow at your nearest On the Run at Mobile. And this year, 6 is a serious number. Adrian Chambers. So there you go. Mitchell Boggs getting loose for that familiar spot of the 8th inning. Get a pitcher spot, then Altuve, and more due up. Rick, at one point, Houston, you might remember, through May 25th, they were only 1 game below 500. So basically 2 months into the season. And then it all went south. They started trading many of their players that had value. At one point, they were 4-34 in 38-game stretch. 4-34.
Well, Carlos Lee at one point was still a majority of their offense in terms of RBI production. You know, their real big league player and their real big league future star could be the second baseman Altuve. And he was getting on base. But the point is, Carlos Lee was still the guy that was driving in runs. And when they got rid of him, I mean, I think at that point it becomes, I don't know how we're going to score. We'll do our best. And then that just kept going south from there. Pitchers started getting traded one by one. Some of their young players weren't performing well. Wallace had been exiled to AAA, was called back up. Martinez, who's not in this game tonight, was their cleanup hitter, and they had to send him to AAA because he couldn't make contact.
Chambers strikes out, and we head to the 8th. Boggs coming in, 3-0 St. Louis. Lineup. They've been out with a wrist injury. 3-0 lead for St. Louis here, so that's good news. And here is Mitchell Boggs, and appearance number 71.
Boggs had issues with his lower back a couple of days ago, but we did see him here last night. He was throwing hard, but didn't quite have all the movement that he normally has with his sinker. He gave up 3 hits in 2/3 of an innings, and there's his pitch total for the week. Again, Sunday and Monday really not available. 25 pitches yesterday.
Jason Castro. First pitch is a strike at 95 miles an hour from Mitchell Boggs.
Hector Ambriz goes an inning and a third out of the bullpen and strikes out 3 of the 4 batters that he faces to keep this game close.
Two-one pitch right down the middle, 2-2. That's hit out of play. Here's a 2-2 pitch, and it's a called third strike. Subway Surprise on the line is a look at the Eastern Division of the American League. Yankees up by a game over Baltimore. Tampa Bay has faltered a bit. They're now 7 out there. So looking at the wild card, then you have Boston and Toronto. Strike 1 to Jose Altuve. And that is strike 2, a knee buckler that time.
Exactly what it was.
Altuve.
Altuve bailed and thought the ball was coming at him, and it was a good sharp slider from Mitchell Boggs, well disguised.
And that's a called third strike as he paints the corner.
A lot of called third strikes in this game tonight. Is this a strike or not? I'm going to say yes. It's the corner, it's a strike.
And that's a strike on the corner, too.
Grip on that call third strike. Basically a two-seamer that he tries to get to move back over the outside corner, and it hits the glove. Yachty receives it well, which is a big part of that.
And Moore is in the hole 0-2. He had a long look at the home plate umpire after the first pitch was called a strike. And both Altuve and Castro have had words with the home plate umpire in this inning alone.
Dan, we should talk a bit about what the Cardinals are doing as far as strikeouts are concerned. You were the first to kind of bring that up about the series in San Diego, how the Cardinals were striking out a ton. 10 strikeouts already in this game as well, and it's becoming a little bit more than just a trend. I would say it's at the problem area.
Nasty stuff. Mitchell Boggs here in the 8th inning. Strikes out the side. Schnook's difference maker is David Freese. 1 for 2 tonight. A 2-run homer and a walk. And he is our difference maker, brought to you by Schnook's.
Mickey Story, the new pitcher for the Houston Astros. And Dan, you talked earlier about the importance of drafting good players. But another thing that teams will do to restock is they'll find minor league free agents, and that's what he was. Played his minor league years with the Oakland A's, and in the minor league free agent draft he was selected by Houston, and he's getting a chance to pitch at this level. Florida Atlantic University, right there in West Palm Beach, where the Cardinals train. That's where he pitched. You always wonder if these guys, some of them may have pitched against the Cardinals along the way. They used to have exhibition games each year against Florida Atlantic.
You bet.
And those are always the worst games to pitch in, because guys can just flat out, I mean, they are so amped up to hit you, and you're not really ready with your best stuff, and there's no upside. To get
them out, you're supposed to get them out.
Exactly right.
Jay fights it off for a base hit into center field. This copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the Cardinals and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the St. Louis Cardinals.
Dodgers back on top 7-6 against the Nationals. Matt Kemp with a solo home run, and a bit of a surprise after the way we saw Matt Kemp swing the bat. He's still the difference maker for that Dodger team. Forget all those guys that they traded for. If he cannot find a way to get his timing back, the Dodgers aren't going to win. If he does, then I think we're going to be a little more concerned about what the Dodgers can do over the last couple of weeks.
Jay was thrown out twice. Game 1 of the series. He stands at first base. Cardinals with a 3-run lead as we play here in the bottom of the 8th. Beltran is 0 for 3. 2 strikeouts. Grounded out sharply to short.
Late again. That pitch at 88 miles an hour, and Carlos way late on that high fastball. So unusual because he's such a good fastball hitter. Just a little bit behind, a little bit slow at this point with his bat speed.
Oh-2 pitch, and it's up the middle for a base hit. Jay to second, on his way to third. Jay and Beltran back-to-back singles up the middle. I still think, Rick, that when you look at the Cardinals, at least on paper, they are such a dangerous team because of Beltran, because of Holliday. Carpenter reemerges in this rotation. It's a team that many across baseball, they say it's a tough matchup for them because of this lineup when healthy.
Yeah, lineup, and then you look at some of the starting pitching realities that you've got Jason Mott in your bullpen, number one, but you've got in a short series, you might have a Carpenter. Let's say he's good. You've got Loesch, one of the top pitchers in the league, and you've got Adam Wainwright and Lance Lynn. I mean, you've got some good choices in that rotation.
Infield is drawn in. Ooh, they almost threw it away.
Chucky Fick, the former Cardinal, loosening now for Houston.
Runners at first and third, and Holliday fouls it back. Three-run lead, and Mott is up. Cardinals advance. Then Joe Kelly, you would have to think, would be likely choice to come in. They add to this.
Good choice.
Talked about it during the open. The numbers for Jason Mott. He's not talked about as being an elite closer,
but he should be.
And that's my point. I think if you start looking at the numbers and breaking down what he's doing, he's as good as some of the best ones in the game.
I think his save total would be much higher if the Cardinals wouldn't have had so many games in the early going. Remember, the Cardinals were hitting so well early in the season. They were winning games 10-2. Well, guess what? You don't get a save in that game. And there were so many of those lopsided wins, and then the Cardinals wouldn't score for 3 or 4 days, and that was kind of the story of the team. All or nothing offensively. Well, you don't get save opportunities in either of those kind of games.
It's popped up, and Wallace will give chase out of play, about 5-10 rows deep.
But the close games are starting to add up here towards the end. We've had a lot of close games on that road trip. Cardinals have struggled in extra innings and one-run decisions, but I think what's going on with the bullpen, 7, 8, 9, is going to help them maybe get better with that number as we close out the year.
1-2 the count. Runners at first and third. Foul tip.
Ouch.
in the dirt. Nice play. Two-two pitch to Holliday. Broken bat, base hit, right center field. That makes it a 4-run lead for the Cardinals, and Beltran winds up at third. It's 3 consecutive singles for the Cardinals here in the home half of the 8th.
And we talk about the Cardinals needing production from the middle of their lineup. They're important key players. Matt Holliday first. Here's his swing, driving the ball the other way. Carlos Beltran also aboard with a base hit, advancing first to third and running pretty well.
And we step aside. On Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by Budweiser. Great times are waiting. Grab some buds. And by Taco Bell. Taco Bell. Live Más. St. Louis with a lead of 4 runs. It's 4-0. Chucky Fick, as Rick mentioned earlier, was part of the Cardinals organization, and now he is with the Houston Astros.
And he will face former teammate Alan Craig.
Runners at first and third. Nobody out here in the home half of the 8th, and Craig on the first pitch drives it into deep right. Plenty deep to score the run from third. Beltran trots home, and it's 5-0 St. Louis. Alan Craig with the RBI. Mentioned his production earlier this year, 1.43 games, 44 RBIs for Alan Craig, and that's number 83. He's had a terrific year.
Just an RBI machine, isn't he?
Yeah.
I can't give you all the reasons why I think this, but he reminds me of Tony Perez in that way. And very different players. Tony Perez, an outstanding first baseman for the Cincinnati Reds and the Big Red Machine, but he was kind of the guy you wouldn't think of first necessarily. But man, could he hit. and he could drive in runs too. And Craig, that kind of player. Different swings, clearly, different styles, but in terms of maybe the value that they bring to the team, that's where the similarity comes to my mind.
So now with a non-save situation, Joe Kelly is getting loose. Mentioned a little bit about it earlier. Would Shelby Miller be the guy to follow Chris Carpenter possibly on Friday? And it's a realistic view of Carpenter. You're just not sure what you're going to get, so you have to be prepared to potentially have somebody be extended out of the bullpen. It could be Shelby Miller. Rosenthal, they feel comfortable now bringing Rosenthal in just about any situation.
I think he's got more of a situational feel to it now.
Too.
I think if Chris Carpenter were to break down for whatever reason, whether his stuff's not there or it just doesn't feel right or whatever the answer may be, I think Shelby Miller is probably a better choice, and just let him kind of go along and let him eat up a lot of innings. I think Trevor Rosenthal at this point is a guy you wouldn't mind bringing in. Bases loaded, 1 out in the 7th inning of a tie game.
Totally agree.
Maybe 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
So, and that was actually what he did some in spring training. Is he established himself in spring training as just a lights out, strikeout, high ceiling kind of pitcher, and the Cardinals loved him. The coaches all saw him. They thought, boy, couldn't get him to stop talking about Trevor Rosenthal. And if the coaches are doing that, you know he's very close to being a big influencer at the big league level.
And you mentioned that you think his future, though, is probably in the starting rotation.
Yeah, and I say that because he has 3 pitches. And, I mean, there's more to that. But I think if you've got a guy who's got the potential of being a number 1 or a number 2 starter, I think you send him there, because that's a guy that's going to impact your game every day, every 5th day. And I think a closer certainly can do that too, but it's really hard to find number 1 and number 2 starters. They're worth so much money. And if he could be an Adam Wainwright type pitcher, where do you want Adam Wainwright? In the bullpen or in the starting rotation?
Right. Here's a 1-2. Adam was talking earlier today about the power arms right now in the organization. He mentioned Rosenthal and Joe Kelly is a mid-90s guy. Miller, same thing. And in the minor leagues, name we've talked about the last couple of years, and he's not too far away, is Carlos Martinez. Freeze with a high fly ball into deep left field. Holliday tagging up from second to third. Holliday plays the game the right way. Goes back, tags up. They may have had a play on him.
Takes the extra base.
Yeah.
He's backpedaling in the outfield. And that's why Holliday thought he could take that extra base. Now, you stop the camera right there, and Holliday wasn't in the picture yet. Lowry actually looked a little surprised when he looked up and saw Holliday coming. Again, why aren't they communicating? You know, and there has to be somebody yelling 3-3-3, because Lowry does not have eyes in the back of his head.
Here's Schumacher. But again, that's a veteran and MVP candidate. And Holliday doing something like that, the small things, tagging up from second to third. A 5-run lead. 2 outs, runners at the corners, and a 1-0 pitch is driven into left center field. It's slicing, and the catch is made. Maxwell with a diving catch. Saves a run, maybe 2. Shane Robinson takes over in right field. And our new pitcher, Joe Kelly, into the ball game. And ninth inning should not be unfamiliar territory for him. He's had a lot of time in college, even in the minor leagues, a little bit closing and working out of the pen.
Well, any place you put Joe Kelly, he's been ready for. You really have to give this guy a lot of credit for becoming a big leaguer fast. I mean, faster than anybody thought he would get here. And then once he got here, he's just embraced this opportunity and been a difference maker.
Here's Brett Wallace. He struck out, flied out, and grounded out. 0 for 3 tonight.
Joe Kelly, another Cardinal pitcher, Dan, that really impressed in spring training. Stayed a little bit longer than most would have thought. In fact, when he was put on the roster and invited to spring training, there was a little bit of a who's he reaction, I think, from a lot of people who follow the Cardinals.
And that's a base hit into center field.
But now we know.
And we have a family and a very sad situation that we want to send our thoughts and prayers out to Megan Herndon and her family. Megan was in a terrible scooter accident at SEMO about 12 days ago. And we wish her family all the best, and our thoughts and prayers are with them. We're behind them. Hitter is Justin Maxwell. That's tapped foul, and it's 0-2.
Cardinals hoping to win their 7th straight game against the Astros. The team coming in here hoping to be a spoiler. They'll get another opportunity to do that not only tomorrow but in Houston early next week. Cardinals with one more road trip. And the Cardinals, who have not played well on the road, are going to have to find a way to do so.
Here's the 0-2 pitch. Taken a little bit low. Well, you had to love the 8th inning that you saw from Mitchell Boggs, and the start tonight by Lance Lynn, pitching very, very well.
Both of them outstanding. Only 4 hits for the Astros tonight.
And there's a strikeout, a called third strike. We've seen a number of times Houston walking away and just shaking their heads at this home plate umpire. Player of the game brought to you by Budweiser. Lance Lynn, 6 1/3, 3 hits, no runs, and he strikes out 5.
In line for victory number 16.
And that's a strike.
You know, thinking about the season in the last few months for Joe Kelly, now his life has changed so much by being a big league player, and you think of the oddities about him. He wears goggles when he pitches. He's not a name we really heard about.
Under the glove of David Freese, and into left field it goes. Wallace stops at second.
pinch hit in the game, got an infield hit, ends up being a game winner. He fell twice running around the bases. He had some real kind of oddities in what it means to be Joe Kelly as the ball scoots under David's glove. But I think this thing that stands out, and I'd like your answer too, Dan, the thing that stands out most to me about Joe Kelly is just the attitude and the calm by which he has embraced being a major league player.
Reliable.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at him, is that you know what you're getting right now out of Joe Kelly. And just like any young player, you're never sure what you're going to get. But he has been steady. And it was a reflection, the steadiness in his numbers. You look at the 6 innings he would give you, under 3 runs. So he's giving you quality start after quality start. And with Carpenter out, and LYNN then was moved to the bullpen, and Kelly was the guy that emerged, gave the team a real lift. Just a calm steadiness to him. When you think about power arms, again, going back to this, just think about what the Cardinals have thrown at Houston here tonight. Lance Lynn, consistently 94, 95 from your starter for 6 innings, 7 innings. Mojica was in there, but the young pitchers is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Mitchell Boggs in the 8th, as good as we've seen him all year, and then finishing up with Joe Kelly. Well, you got to like that for the future, too.
No question, one after another. Kelly in particular, if he does not provide that steadying influence you're talking about, it's not as if, you know, he's won a ton of games, but he's given his team a chance to win a lot with those quality starts. If it's not for Joe Kelly, we are watching this game right now talking about 2013 more than we're talking about 2012.
For sure. Little floater, shallow left, and it's going to drop in. The bases will be loaded. That ball just hung up there forever.
Would be a fly ball single. We talk about the Bermuda Triangle of baseball. Second base, shortstop, left field. The ball gets lost. The center fielder comes in to make the play. Bad break for Joe Kelly. Game's not over yet.
Descalso will come into the ball game, and Mott will come in onto the bullpen, and it's 5-0 here in the top of the ninth. Six saves and 43 opportunities, and Mike Matheny taking no chances at all, so bases loaded, and he calls his closer into the game.
Save opportunity for Jason Mott, and really not much luck for Joe Kelly. And, you know, sometimes you change a pitcher just because he doesn't seem to be having things going his particular way on a night. Ground ball that David Freese may have been able to handle, then a little pop fly. You could say game should be over right now.
Against the Central, Jason Mott 3-3, 2.25 ERA. You picked up on something last night. Arm angle dropped ever so slightly, but also a little tailing action and sinking the ball.
And he gets that from two things. It may be actually throwing a two-seamer, number one. Actually grabs a two-seam grip there when he holds the ball at his side. But the other thing is the lower the arm angle will give you a little bit more sink.
Got him. Carved him up.
There's the lower arm angle. This is actually a cutter that goes the other way. So he's got the sinker that goes one way, the cutter that goes the other. And when a pitcher can throw two pitches from the same arm slot, it keeps the hitter guessing.
And with 2 outs, bases loaded, Mott trying to finish it off. Here's the 0-1 pitch and make it 0-2. Save situation because you have the potential tying run that is on deck at a 5-run lead. Here's the 0-2. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Cardinals trying to win the series and set up for a sweep tomorrow.
You'll hear pitching coaches talking about climbing the ladder. That's exactly what Jason Mott did with those 3 pitches. High, higher, and highest. How high will he go chasing that fastball at 97 or 98 miles an hour?
Here's a 1-2. Got him! Cardinals hold on for a 5-0 win. They make it 2 in a row over Houston. Another save for Jason Mott. Lance Lynn picks up the victory. 5-0 the final tonight. So we'll look at the standings. St. Louis 2.5 in front of Milwaukee and LA. Phillies 4 out. Pittsburgh 4.5 for that second wild card spot.
Cardinals hope for a sweep. Now they have an opportunity to do so against the Astros before heading off to Chicago for the weekend.
Another big win. They all are big down the stretch. Stay with us. We hope to visit with David Freese momentarily.